You find yourself walking through an opulent palace, its marble floors gleaming in the soft light that filters through the tall windows. The air smells faintly of fresh flowers and the rich scent of old wood. The hallways are adorned with golden tapestries, and the walls are lined with intricate paintings of grand battles and noble kings. You can hear the distant echo of music from the ballroom, where elegant people dance in extravagant gowns and polished suits. It's a world of grandeur, a world where every desire is met before it's even voiced. And yet, in the midst of all this, there's a stillness, an emptiness that clings to the air like a lingering fog. It's a place where everything seems perfect, but something within the very walls tells you that perfection is a masked dot. In the center of this world sits the young duke, the heir to the grand estate. He's surrounded by everything that money can buy: fine clothes, expensive meals, servants at his beck and call. His father, the king, watches over him with the weight of expectation, his eyes always on his son, pushing him to uphold the family's honor, to live up to the legacy of their bloodline. The Duke, however, feels no pride in this. You can see him standing by the tall window of his chambers, staring out at the horizon where the sun dips below the city's towering spires. The world outside is vast, but it feels so far away from his world of gold and velvet. There is a sense of isolation in his posture, a deep longing that the luxury around him cannot fill. He has everything, yet nothing. He is the heir to a kingdom, but it's a kingdom of shallow comforts. A kingdom where the deepest parts of him remain unexplored. In the stillness of the night, as the city below pulses with life, the Duke stands alone. The world offers him everything he could ever want, yet it feels like a cage, beautiful, golden, but confining. His thoughts are heavy. The Duke's eyes flicker with something more than mere discontent. There is a yearning, an unanswered question in his heart. He knows there must be more to life than this. He has everything except for the one thing that truly matters: purpose. The echoes of laughter from the palace ballroom fade into the distance as he closes his eyes, lost in thought. It's a life that many would envy, but to him it feels like a never-ending parade of hollow moments. The more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that he's been living in a world that's been constructed for him, not by him. A world of expectations and pressures, where his every step is dictated by the weight of his title. You sense his frustration, the quiet stirring of a desire for something more. This young duke, though surrounded by splendor, is not free. He is trapped by his own identity, by the legacy of those who came before him. In his heart, there is a longing to escape, to seek something beyond the palace walls, beyond the golden cage that confines him. As he stands there in the silence, the world outside begins to call to him. It is a world of adventure, of mystery, of things he has yet to understand. He feels it deep inside, a longing to break free, to discover what it means to live beyond the boundaries of his inherited world. There's no immediate answer, no clear path before him, but the feeling grows stronger by the day, urging him to move, to seek, to understand. But for now, he is still. The gold of his surroundings glints in the dimming light, a reminder of what he has and what he has yet to. Find that the days pass in a blur of routine. The Duke's life continues as it always has, an endless parade of duties, formal gatherings, and expectations. The grand hallways of the palace are filled with the sound of bustling servants, the clinking of fine china, and the laughter of the aristocracy. But none of it touches him. He is adrift in a sea of privilege, floating on the surface without ever feeling the depth of life itself. Each morning, he wakes to the sound of the city below, a city full of people, full of life, yet so distant from him. His father's kingdom is a well-oiled machine, efficient and powerful, but there is a coldness to it. The Duke feels as if he's living in a world that is already decided for him, where every moment has already been scripted. He often finds himself looking out the window of his chambers, watching the world move in a way that feels so unfamiliar. The workers in the fields, the children running through the streets, the travelers passing by, all of them seem so alive, so fully immersed in the moment. They don't have the luxury of time to waste, but they have something he lacks: freedom. There are moments when he wonders what it would feel like to leave everything behind. The idea flickers in his mind like a distant flame: freedom, adventure, self-discovery, but it is quickly extinguished by the reality of his position. He is the Duke, the heir to a great legacy. How could he walk away from that? How could he betray the expectations of his father, his family, his kingdom? But even as he struggles with these thoughts, there is a restlessness growing inside him. It gnaws at him in the quiet moments, in the spaces between his responsibilities. It's not the emptiness of wealth or the burden of his title that bothers him the most. It's the silence, the absence of meaning in his life. He has everything, but it feels like nothing. He is expected to lead, to rule, but he doesn't know how to find purpose in a life that's been dictated by others. One evening, as the sun sets behind the distant hills, the Duke takes a walk in the palace gardens. The fragrance of blooming flowers fills the air, but it does little to soothe the growing ache in his chest. He walks aimlessly, his footsteps muffled by the thick grass, lost in thought. The weight of the crown presses heavily on his mind. He feels it even when he is alone, even when he isn't physically wearing it. Asterisk. As he walks, he comes across a small stone bench nestled beneath an ancient oak tree. The branches stretch wide above him, their leaves rustling gently in the wind. He sits leaning back, and for the first time in days, he allows himself to truly reflect. The sounds of the palace fade into the distance, and he is left with only the quiet of the night and the distant hum of the world outside. He closes his eyes for a moment, allowing the cool evening air to wash over him. In the stillness, he feels something stir deep inside, a longing, a pull toward something unknown. It's not a thought he can explain, but it's a feeling that he cannot ignore. It's as if the world outside is calling to him, urging him to step beyond the palace walls, to explore what lies beyond the life he has always known. He wonders what it would be like to be free from the weight of his title, free from the expectations that have defined his every action. For the first time, he allows himself to Imagine a life beyond the palace, a life where he could be someone else, someone undefined by his birthright. He imagines wandering the world, experiencing life not as a duke, but as a man. It's a fleeting thought, one that feels almost impossible to pursue, but in that moment, something shifts within him. He can't quite explain it, but he feels a spark of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, there is something more out there waiting for him. It's a thought he has long pushed aside, but now it lingers, quietly pressing on his heart, urging him to listen. As the moon rises higher in the sky, the Duke stands and looks out over the gardens. The soft glow of the night illuminates the world in a way that feels new, gentle, and full of possibility. He feels a sense of quiet determination settle over him, something that has been absent for far too long. The life he's been living, the life that others have chosen for him, has never truly been his. And as he stands there in the quiet of the garden, he makes a silent promise to himself. He will no longer live in the shadow of his title. The world beyond the palace, beyond the walls of his golden cage, calls to him. And this time he will answer. Asterisk, the following days pass in a blur, but the Duke's resolve only strengthens. Each time he walks through the grand halls of the palace, each time he hears the murmurs of the court around him, his mind drifts to that quiet evening under the oak tree, the garden, the cool breeze, and the feeling of freedom he had touched. Those moments now linger in his thoughts like a haunting melody he cannot shake. He knows something has changed, and though he tries to ignore it, the pull of something greater, something outside of the confines of his title, only grows stronger. One morning, after a particularly long and tiresome meeting with his father, the Duke finds himself standing at the edge of the palace grounds once more. The familiar stone walls of the kingdom, which have always felt like a safe, impenetrable fortress, now appear more like barriers to his freedom. His father's words echo in his mind about the responsibilities of leadership, the weight of the crown, and the duty that binds him to his family and his kingdom. But as he looks out over the sprawling landscape of the kingdom, a different thought creeps into his mind. What if I'm not meant to rule this way? The Duke stands still, his heart pounding in his chest. There's an unsettling thrill that rises inside him, a sense of possibility. He knows that to leave the palace, to step into the unknown, would mean abandoning everything he's ever known. Everything his father and society expect of him. It would be a betrayal, or so he's been taught. But as the sun sets in the distance, casting a warm glow across the horizon, he feels an undeniable urge to escape. The world beyond these walls beckons to him, calling him to take the first step, to step into a life that's his to shape. That night, the Duke makes a decision. It isn't a sudden impulse, but the result of 1,000 small thoughts and quiet moments of reflection. He will leave. He will walk away from the life that has been planned for him. It will not be easy, he knows that, but he also knows that he can no longer live a life dictated by someone else's expectations. He doesn't tell anyone, not even his closest servants. Instead, he slips quietly from his chambers in the dead of night, carrying nothing but the barest essentials. He feels both fear and excitement, a mix of emotions that swirl inside him like a storm. For the first time in his life, he feels truly alive and sure of what comes next, but aware that he is about to embark on something profound. The Duke leaves the palace unnoticed. The cool night air greeting him as he steps out from under the shadow of the grand walls. The road ahead is dark, but the path stretches out before him, endless and full of possibility. He steps forward, leaving behind the golden cage of his birthright, the legacy of his family, and the life of comfort that had stifled his soul. Journey is long, and though he has nothing but the clothes on his back, the Duke walks with purpose. The world outside the palace walls is different, messier, more chaotic, and at times terrifying, but it is also real. He meets strangers, some kind, some indifferent, and through each encounter, he learns something new. The Duke, once so isolated within his gilded world, now finds himself connected to the very people he had once looked down upon. The simplicity of their lives, the rawness of their daily struggles, fills him with a sense of awe and humility. There are moments when he wonders whether he made the right decision. There are nights when the comfort of the palace seems like a distant dream, a memory of safety and warmth. He misses the luxuries he once took for granted, the soft bed, the elaborate meals, the respect that came with his title. But every time doubt creeps in, he reminds himself of the feeling he had in the garden, of the freedom he is now experiencing. It's an uncomfortable kind of freedom, but it's real. And as the days stretch on, he finds himself growing stronger, more resilient, and more aware of the man he is becoming. One evening, as he camps in a small village on the outskirts of the kingdom, the Duke meets an old woman who offers him a simple meal. She doesn't know who he is, and to her, he is just another traveler in need of food and shelter. As they sit by the fire, he tells her about the life he left behind, about the palace, the title, the expectations. She listens patiently, her face calm but wise. When he finishes speaking, she simply says, "Sometimes you have to leave what's familiar to find what's true." The words hit him like a wave. He nods slowly, feeling as though the old woman has unlocked something deep inside him. He has left the comfort of his life, yes, but in doing so, he is beginning to uncover who he really is. The Duke realizes that this journey, this search for freedom, is not about running away from his past, but about discovering what lies beyond it. It's about finding his own path, one that is not defined by his title or his father's legacy, but by his own choices. His own strength as the fire burns low. The Duke looks up at the night sky. The stars scattered above him like the possibilities of his life. He is no longer the young Duke of the castle. He is something new, something undefined. The journey is only just beginning, but he feels a quiet sense of peace. The road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in his life, he is walking it. On his own terms, the Duke wakes early the next morning. The sky still dark, but with the first light of dawn slowly creeping in. The fire he had built the night before is now little more than glowing embers, casting a soft orange hue across the surrounding trees. He rises quietly, feeling the cool morning air brush against his skin. The weight of his decision still lingers in his chest, but it feels different now. There's no sense of regret, only a quiet anticipation for the unknown dot as he packs his belongings. Still so few, just a small bag with the essentials. He reflects on how far he's come already. Leaving the palace was a risk, a bold move that separated him from everything he had ever known. But the world, with its unpredictability and simple honesty, has opened up in a way that feels more real than anything he had ever experienced in the shadow of the palace walls. The old woman, who had offered him food the previous night, watches him quietly as he prepares to leave. Her weathered hands fold neatly in her lap, and though she says nothing, her eyes speak volumes. There's an understanding in her gaze, a recognition of the journey he's on before he leaves. The Duke turns to her, his voice softer now, filled with gratitude. "Thank you for the kindness you've shown me," he says, his tone sincere. "I wasn't sure what I would find out here, but I feel different in a way that I can't fully explain." She smiles at him, the lines around her eyes crinkling. "You'll find what you need, young man. But remember, freedom comes with its own challenges. Don't mistake it for simplicity." Her words, though gentle, carry a weight of wisdom, one that lingers in his thoughts as he sets off down the road. The journey ahead is uncertain. The path is winding, and each step feels like it's leading him into the unknown. The Duke doesn't know where he's going, only that he must keep moving forward, away from the life he's known. The landscape around him changes as he walks once. Lush fields give way to dry, rocky terrain, and the vibrant forests turn into sparse, open plains. But through it all, there is a growing sense of purpose in his steps. Each mile traveled is a step away from his past, and each step brings him closer to the life he has been seeking. Days turn into weeks, and the Duke finds himself learning more about the world and, perhaps more importantly, about himself. He learns to live with less, to appreciate the simplicity of the world around him. He finds comfort in the rhythm of walking, in the quiet of the mornings, and in the stillness of the nights spent under the stars. The hustle of palace life seems far away now, almost like a dream he once had, distant and faint. He meets people along the way, merchants, travelers, farmers, and each encounter offers him something new. Some teach him about their crafts, while others share stories of their lives. These stories, simple and full of raw truth, are a far cry from the polite conversations he once had with nobles and courtiers. The Duke begins to understand the depth of human experience, the struggles, the joys, and the lessons that come with living a life that is not dictated by wealth or status. Asterisk at times, he finds himself questioning his journey. There are moments when doubt creeps in, when the hardships of the road weigh heavy on him. The journey is not easy. It's filled with discomfort, uncertainty, and loneliness. But every time he feels like giving up, he reminds himself of the feeling he had when he first stepped away from the palace, the quiet, burning desire for something real, something beyond the gilded cage of his birthright. That desire, that pull, is what keeps him moving forward. One night, as he sits by a campfire, the crackling flames casting shadows on the ground, the Duke reflects on the changes he has already undergone. He no longer feels the need to prove himself, no longer concerned with how others perceive him. He has learned that real strength comes from within, not from a title or inheritance. He feels the stirrings of a deeper understanding of life, one that he never could have gained had he remained within the walls of his palace. The fire flickers as he looks into the embers, his thoughts quiet. He is far from home now, but he feels a peace that he has never known before. This peace, however, is not born from comfort or certainty. It is born from the acceptance of the unknown, from the realization that his journey is not one of destination, but of self-discovery. Asterisk, as the stars begin to twinkle in the sky above him, the Duke feels a quiet sense of fulfillment. He knows that this path will not be easy and that the road ahead will be long. But for the first time, he is certain of one thing. He is no longer running from something. He is running toward something. And in that knowledge, he finds the courage to keep walking. Asterisk, he stands and looks toward the horizon, the dark silhouette of the world stretching before him. The journey is far from over, but the Duke now knows that he has already begun to change. The world is vast, and with each step, he grows a little closer to discovering what he has been searching for all along himself. The Duke's journey has become a rhythm, like the steady beat of a drum in the distance, slow and deliberate. The steps of his feet now carrying him not just across miles, but through time itself. The days are longer now, and the road, though still unmarked and uncertain, feels less daunting. He's come to embrace the discomforts of the path, the blisters, the empty nights, the days filled with silence. But it is in the silence that something profound begins to stir within him. The world outside, once so intimidating, now feels like a place he belongs, even if he isn't sure where exactly he's headed. But as the landscape changes, so does the Duke. There are moments when, walking through the vast, barren fields, he is reminded of his former life, the opulent rooms of the castle, the silken sheets, the endless indulgence. The memory of the palace lingers in his mind, like a dream fading in the morning light. He thinks of his father, the king, of his expectations, his lessons, his control over every aspect of his life. There are still times when he feels the weight of his past pushing against him, like an unseen hand urging him to return to what he knows, what is safe. But with every step, he distances himself from that life, and with each mile, the past loses a little more of its grip on him as he walks. The Duke encounters others along the road, people who are not like him, who do not have the luxuries he once took for granted. He meets a merchant who speaks of the struggles of his trade, a farmer whose hands are callous from years of hard work, and a family who has lost their home to a fire. These people, so different from the courtiers and nobles he once knew, offer him a different perspective on life. They speak of survival, of resilience, of building something from nothing. And in their words, the Duke finds a reflection of himself, A man who once had everything, that now feels as though he's starting from scratch. A man who, despite his wealth, had been trapped in a golden cage. One evening, as the sun begins to set, casting the sky in hues of pink and orange, the Duke sits beside a small campfire. The crackling of the fire fills the silence, and for a moment he closes his eyes, letting the warmth of the flames seep into his bones. His thoughts drift back to his childhood, to the halls of the palace, to his father's stern voice telling him what to do, how to think, who to become. He remembers how it felt to have everything mapped out for him, how it was always about living up to expectations, meeting the standard of what a duke should be. But now, out here, in the quiet of the wilderness, there are no expectations. Number one to tell him what to do, who he should be. It is both liberating and frightening. For the first time in his life, he realizes that he is truly free to choose his path, free to define his own identity. But with this freedom comes a heavy responsibility, the responsibility to become the person he wants to be, not the person others have expected him to be. The fire crackles, and the Duke stirs, pulling his cloak tighter around his shoulders. He is cold, physically tired, and emotionally drained, but there is a part of him that feels alive in a way he has never felt before. The weight of the palace, the title, the crown, these things are still with him, lingering in the back of his mind, but they no longer define him. He is learning to exist outside of them, to find value in himself without relying on the validation of his birthright dot as he sits there. The stars begin to appear, scattered across the darkening sky like diamonds. The night air is cool, the silence profound. The Duke feels a strange comfort in the stillness, as though the universe itself is holding its breath, waiting for him to decide what comes next. And in this quiet moment, he realizes something crucial. His journey is not just about escaping the palace. It's about discovering who he truly is, beyond the walls that once defined him. He stands up, stretches, and begins to pack up his things. The fire now reduced to a small pile of glowing embers. The night feels different now, filled with the weight of what he has learned. The path ahead may still be unclear, but the Duke knows one thing for certain. He is no longer the person who walked away from the palace. He is someone new, someone who is shaping his destiny with every step. And so, as the night stretches on, he continues his journey. The quiet echo of his past still in the distance, but no longer holding him back. He is moving forward with nothing but the stars above, the road ahead, and the promise of self-discovery in every step he takes as the days turn into weeks. The Duke feels both the weight and the freedom of his decision settling in. The road stretches endlessly before him, winding through forests, over rivers, and across vast open plains. He has become accustomed to the solitude, but there are times when the silence feels overwhelming. The absence of conversation, the lack of voices in his ear telling him what to do, is both a relief and a challenge. For so long, he had lived in the noise of the palace, the constant hum of expectations, the swirl of political discourse, the busy, frantic pace of royal life. Out here, in the quiet of the world beyond the walls, There is nothing but the sound of his footsteps, the rustling of the wind in the trees, and the occasional calls of birds in the distance. It is, in a way, both peaceful and unnerving. The Duke's mind is constantly at work, grappling with the vastness of this freedom. In the beginning, the idea of traveling on his own had been exhilarating, like stepping out into a new world, full of possibilities. But now, as time passes, he begins to feel the weight of isolation. There are no servants to wait on him, no scheduled meetings or balls to attend, no kingdom to rule. There's only the road and the questions that have begun to surface deep within him. Who is he really? Without the title of Duke, without the palace, what is left of his identity? He thinks back to the days in the palace when he had everything but felt so empty. The more he reflects on his old life, the more he begins to understand the emptiness that plagued him. The opulence, the wealth, the admiration, none of it had ever truly filled the void inside him. He had been living for others, for the expectations placed upon him, the pressure to conform, to maintain the royal image had shaped every decision, every action. But now, out here, he is free to live for himself, to make choices based on his own desires and beliefs. One day, as he walks along a narrow trail, lined with tall trees, a sudden rainstorm sweeps in, turning the path into a muddy mess. The Duke finds shelter under a large oak tree, watching the rain pour down in sheets. He pulls his cloak tighter around him, but the cold still seeps through. His thoughts begin to drift back to the palace again, to the luxuries he once took for granted: the warmth of a hearth, the soft comfort of a bed, the delicious food served at every meal. In this moment, it feels like everything he left behind was perfect, and he wonders if he made the right choice. But just as quickly, a new realization strikes him. He had been running from something, running from the suffocating expectations that had controlled his every move, running from the person he thought he had to be. Now, here in the rain, with nothing but his thoughts and the rawness of the world around him, he understands that the struggle isn't in leaving his old life behind. It's in learning to live without the safety nets, without the labels. He has to face himself, face the person he really is beyond the title of Duke. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. The rain slows, and the clouds part to reveal a soft golden light. The Duke steps out from under the tree, feeling the damp earth beneath his boots, the air still heavy with moisture. He breathes in deeply, the fresh, earthy scent of rain filling his lungs. His mind feels clearer, as if the storm has washed away some of the uncertainty that had clouded his thoughts. He continues walking, his footsteps now more purposeful, more grounded. The world around him feels more alive than ever: the rustle of the trees, the distant sound of a river, the occasional chirp of a bird. It's as though the world is inviting him to slow down and listen, to truly experience it. Asterisk: the Duke's journey is not just a physical one. It is a journey of the soul, of self-discovery. And with each passing day, he learns more about the man he wants to become. He is no longer the Duke who sought to escape his world, but a man who is learning to embrace the unknown. The road ahead remains uncertain, But for the first time, he feels ready to face whatever comes next. As the sun sets, casting a golden glow over the landscape, the Duke finds a small village nestled by a stream. The warmth of the evening sun makes the world seem gentler, quieter, and he is drawn to the simple charm of the village, a stark contrast to the grand palace he once called home. Here, people live close to the land, tending to their fields and homes, and though they may have little in the way of riches, there is a sense of peace and contentment that the Duke has never known. He walks through the village, feeling the eyes of the villagers on him. They do not know who he is, and yet it is as if they can sense something about him, a stranger passing through, a man on a journey. The Duke pauses by a well, taking a moment to rest. He looks at the villagers around him, working, laughing, living in a way that is so different from the controlled world he once inhabited. There's no grandeur here, no titles or royal bloodlines, just people living their lives. And for the first time, the Duke feels something stir inside him. He is not just passing through this village. He is a part of the world now, no longer confined by the title of Duke, but free to be whatever he chooses. It is a small realization, but one that feels monumental. In this moment, he knows he is on the right path. And with that, the Duke sets off again, the road ahead filled with more possibilities than he had ever imagined. As the Duke moves forward, the weight of freedom begins to settle on his shoulders. The further he travels from the palace, the more he feels the burden of this newfound independence. It is both exhilarating and terrifying. He no longer has anyone to answer to, no advisors, no expectations, no routine set for him. There are no formal balls to attend, no royal duties to fulfill. And yet, with this freedom, he realizes there is an emptiness too, an absence of direction he hadn't anticipated. The world before him is vast, so vast that it's impossible to imagine how to gauge it. It's not the same as the world within. The walls of the palace, where everything was structured, predictable. The Duke remembers his first few days on the road, when the excitement of leaving the palace had driven him to walk with a sense of purpose. He had been eager to escape, to explore, to discover something more than the life he had known. But now, as he stands on the edge of a quiet forest, his thoughts feel fragmented. There is no clear path in sight, and the uncertainty of what lies ahead weighs on him more than he expected. The landscape has shifted once more. The lush forests have given way to a dense, misty fog that clings to the trees, muting the colors of the world around him. It's a place that feels both mysterious and isolating. The Duke pauses for a moment, taking in the stillness of the forest, the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze, the low hum of distant life. It is in this solitude that he begins to question everything he thought he knew. He was born to lead, to inherit a kingdom. That was the path laid out for him, the one he had been raised to follow. But what was leadership? What was ruling, if not the duty to serve and guide others? He had spent so long chasing an ideal, believing that power would provide the answers. But now that he was free of those chains, he wasn't sure what leadership meant. For the first time, He feels the full weight of what it means to be responsible for himself. He has no title to fall back on, no royal bloodline to claim. There are no adoring subjects waiting for him to make decisions. There are no boundaries to define him. He is simply a man walking through the world, unmarked by any exterior titles or claims. And yet, there is a strange comfort in this simplicity, relief from the weight of royal expectations, a feeling of space in which to grow. But then, doubt creeps in. He wonders if his decision to leave the palace was merely an act of escape, a flight from responsibility. Did he abandon his people, his duty? Was it selfish to leave his father's kingdom in search of something unknown? He had always believed that he needed to be more than a prince, that he needed to find his own purpose. But now, without the structure of the palace to guide him, he wonders if he was right to seek freedom in the first place. Perhaps it was his sense of duty that defined him, and not the freedom to choose his own path. As the mist thickens, the Duke feels a profound loneliness settle within him. He is far from home, far from the life he knew. He had walked away in search of something greater, but the very act of leaving has forced him to confront his deepest fears. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of being insignificant. The vast world stretches out in all directions, but it feels both overwhelming and empty. Who is he without the title, without the role that had once been his life's purpose? The Duke's footsteps slow as he walks deeper into the forest. The trees loom tall around him, their branches reaching up like skeletal fingers. The fog seems to wrap around him, thick and heavy, and for a moment he stops, unsure of where to go next. The path ahead is unclear, and the uncertainty gnaws at him. It's in this moment of stillness that he hears something, a distant sound, barely audible above the rustling of leaves, a soft voice, almost like a whisper. He turns, but there's no one in sight, only the trees and the fog. But the voice lingers in his mind as if calling to him. He takes a deep breath, allowing the sound to settle in his chest, letting the weight of the forest, the weight of his own thoughts wash over him. For the first time since leaving the palace, he allows himself to be fully present, to stop, to listen, to feel. And in that moment, something shifts inside him. The uncertainty is still there, but it no longer feels as heavy. Instead, it feels like a space in which he can grow, can choose, can become. The Duke continues walking, more slowly now with a new sense of intention. He doesn't know where the road will take him, but for the first time in a long while, he feels like he is truly walking his own path. It may not be clear, and it may be filled with uncertainty, but it is his path. And that is enough. The fog begins to clear as he steps forward, the sound of the forest around him growing louder, richer. The world is opening up in ways he never imagined. With each step, he is not running away from something, but moving towards something unknown, something that promises to change him in ways he can't yet understand. And as the mist lifts, so does the weight of his doubt. The road ahead may be unclear, but the Duke knows this now. The freedom he sought is not in escaping his past, but in embracing the journey that lies before him. The journey of self-discovery. The journey toward understanding who he truly is. Without the walls of his former life to define him, Dodd, as the Duke walks further into the forest, the world around him seems to open up in ways he had never anticipated. The fog lifts, revealing a path that winds through towering trees and patches of soft moss. The air smells of damp earth and pine, a fresh, clean scent that feels like a new beginning. The journey, which had once seemed so uncertain, now feels like a quiet, unfolding adventure. His footsteps, though heavy with thought, are steady. The Duke pauses for a moment, taking in the scene around him. The peaceful silence of the forest is broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves and the distant chirp of birds. In the stillness, he begins to reflect on his life before this moment, the life that had been dictated by others, the life he had left behind in the palace. It was a life filled with certainty, with rules, with expectations, but it was also a life devoid of true choice, a life where everything was decided for him. Now, here in the quiet of the woods, the only thing that matters is the decision he makes in the next moment. The choice is simple, yet profound, to continue moving forward or to turn back, to embrace the unknown or to return to the safety of the palace. But even as the thought crosses his mind, the Duke knows there is no turning back. He has already crossed that line, stepped into a life that has no clear destination, no defined path. It is a life he must create for himself. Asterisk, the weight of that choice settles heavily on him. It's a responsibility that he has never had to bear before. In the palace, his life had been defined by his title, by the expectations of others. Now, out here, there is no title, no role to play, and no one to answer to but himself. The freedom that once seemed so enticing now feels like a burden. It's one thing to walk away from a life you don't want, but it's another to stand in the midst of the unknown and realize that you must create something new from nothing. The Duke sits down on the nearby rock, his thoughts swirling in the quiet air. His heart is heavy with the enormity of what he has chosen. But with the weight of this responsibility comes a sense of clarity. He knows that the only way forward is to trust in himself, to embrace this new life with all its uncertainties and challenges. There is no blueprint for this kind of freedom, no instructions for how to live a life unchained from the past. He must forge his own path step by step, and in doing so, he will discover who he truly is. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the forest floor, the Duke feels a shift within him. The restlessness, the doubt, the longing that had once gnawed at him now feels like a distant memory. It has been replaced by something stronger, a quiet resolve. He will not run from his past, but he will not let it define him either. He will walk forward into the unknown, not as a duke, not as a title, but as a man who is free to choose his own destiny. With a deep breath, the Duke rises to his feet, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders, but with a new sense of purpose. The path ahead is still unclear, but it no longer feels overwhelming. It feels like a challenge he is ready to face, a journey he must take. And as he takes the first step, he realizes that the road ahead, though uncertain, is the one he has chosen. The forest seems to welcome him, the trees standing tall like silent sentinels, guiding him forward. The sounds of the world around him, distant bird song, the rustling of leaves, feel like a soft melody, a reminder that he is not alone on this journey. He is part of something greater, something larger than himself. And though the road may be long and filled with unknowns, he knows he is no longer running away from his past, but walking toward something new. The night falls slowly, the stars beginning to twinkle above, and the Duke walks onward, each step more sure than the last. There is no destination, no end in sight, but for the first time in his life, he feels free, truly free to follow his own path. And that freedom, though it carries the weight of responsibility, feels lighter with each passing moment as he continues down the road. The Duke knows that his journey is just beginning. The world ahead is wide, full of possibility, but he is no longer afraid of the unknown. He is ready to face whatever comes next, ready to find out who he is beyond the walls of the palace, beyond the title of Duke, ready to become the man he has always been meant to be. The days turn into weeks, and with each step, the Duke feels the weight of his decision, not as a burden, but as a quiet strength. The road ahead continues to unfold like a canvas, each mile adding a new stroke to the picture of his life. The journey is long, and there are moments when doubt flickers in the back of his mind. But with every new experience, every new person he meets, he begins to feel a deeper connection to the world and to himself. The Duke no longer feels lost in the vastness of the world around him. At first, the open road had felt endless and overwhelming, like an ocean without a shore. But now, he walks with purpose. Every step he takes feels like a deliberate choice, not just to move forward, but to truly live. The road has become a part of him, and he has become a part of it. One evening, as the sun sets in a golden wash across the sky, the Duke finds himself resting by the edge of a small stream. The air is cool, and the sound of the water gently flowing over smooth rocks fills the silence. He closes his eyes for a moment, allowing the soft hum of nature to wash over him. The world feels still, and for the first time in a long time, he feels a deep peace. He thinks of the palace, the crown, the life he once lived. At first, those memories had been like chains, weighing him down, reminding him of everything he had left behind. But now, as he sits by the stream, those memories no longer have the same power. They are no longer the markers of his identity. They are simply pieces of his past, no more important than the stones beneath his feet. He thinks of his father, the king, and the expectations that had been placed on him. He thinks of the lessons, the responsibilities, the rigid structure of his life, but he also remembers the quiet moments, the times when he had wanted to escape, to breathe, to live beyond the expectations of his title. The Duke now realizes that he had been living in the shadow of his name, but the person he was meant to be had always been inside him, waiting to be discovered. That the realization comes slowly, like the fading light of the day. He no longer needs to carry the weight of what he was supposed to be. He is now, and that is enough. The Duke has learned that life is not about titles, not about expectations, not about the things that others have imposed on him. It is about the choices he makes. In each moment, the steps he takes on his own path. And for the first time, he feels a deep sense of peace with who he is becoming. As the sun sets completely, the sky is bathed in hues of purple and blue, the stars beginning to appear one by one. The Duke stands and stretches, feeling the weight of the journey in his muscles, but also the strength he has gained along the way. The road before him is still long, but he no longer feels overwhelmed by it. He is not afraid of what lies ahead. For the first time, he understands that life's journey is not about reaching a destination, but about the experiences and lessons gained along the way. He gathers his things, and with a final glance at the stream, he sets off once more, walking into the night. There's no urgency in his steps, only a quiet confidence. The world is vast, yes, but it is also his to explore. The freedom he sought is not just in the physical distance from the palace, it is in the mental and emotional distance he has traveled. The Duke is no longer the same person who left that palace. He has been shaped by the road, by the people he has met, by the lessons he has learned as he walks through the darkened landscape. The Duke feels a strange connection to the world around him. He is not alone. The stars above, the wind in the trees, the quiet earth beneath his feet, all of it feels like part of the same journey. The road stretches on, but he no longer fears what lies ahead. He walks with a new sense of purpose, a new understanding of himself. Each step forward is not just a step away from his past. It is a step toward his future, and in that moment, with the night sky above him and the world stretching out before him, the Duke understands the true meaning of freedom, not in the absence of responsibility, but in the ability to choose, to grow, to become the person he was always meant to be. The journey is his, and it will take him wherever he chooses. Days turned into weeks, and the journey continued. The Duke's footsteps, guided only by the rhythm of his heart and the whispers of the wind. He no longer kept track of time in the way he once did, measuring his days by meetings and duties. Instead, time was now marked by the changing landscapes, the soft glow of dawn, the warmth of midday, the quiet hush of dusk. Each day felt like a new chapter in the story of his life, one that he was writing with his own choices and experiences. One evening, as the Duke walks through a dense forest, the night begins to settle in with a comforting silence. The forest is thick with towering trees that seem to touch the sky, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. The air is cool, and the scent of earth and pine fills his lungs. The path before him narrows as he walks, the ground soft and uneven beneath his feet. But there is no discomfort in the unevenness, no frustration at the winding, unpredictable path. Instead, there is peace. A quiet peace that settles within him with each step he takes. He pauses for a moment to catch his breath, gazing out into the vast expanse of the forest. The stars above are brilliant, scattered across the dark sky like diamonds. He sits on a fallen log, his back resting against the rough bark of a tree, and allows himself to truly see the world around him. The way the moonlight filters through the leaves, casting long, soft shadows on the ground. The stillness of the forest is broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves and the distant call of an owl. For the first time in years, the Duke feels at home in the world, not because he is surrounded by the beauty of nature, but because he is no longer bound by anything. He is free, not just in body, but in spirit. He had once thought that freedom was something to be sought externally, a place, a moment, an escape. But now he understands that freedom is internal. It's a state of being, a mindset. The moment he walked away from the life that had been chosen for him, he began to find it. The weight of his past, the title, the responsibilities, the expectations had always weighed heavily on him. He had thought that these things defined him, that they were who he was. But now, in the silence of the forest, he realizes that they were never his to define him. He had allowed them to shape him, but they were not him. He was not the Duke of the palace. He was not the son of the king. He was simply a man with his own heart, his own mind, his own desires. And in this moment, he embraces that realization. Fully, the Duke feels the quiet stirrings of a revelation within him. It is not loud or dramatic, but it is profound. He is not defined by his birthright, nor by the life that was laid out for him. He is defined by his choices, by the path he walks, by the man he chooses to become. Asterisk in the stillness of the forest. He understands that the journey he embarked on was not just one of physical distance, it was a journey inward. Each step he took away from the palace, each day he spent in the world outside, had brought him closer to the essence of who he was. He had been searching for freedom, but what he had been searching for all along was himself. The night deepens, and the Duke rises from the log, feeling a new sense of purpose settle over him. The stars above are his guides now, the sky a vast, endless canvas of possibilities. He is no longer just walking away from something. He is walking toward something, toward the man he is becoming, toward the life he is creating for himself. The forest path opens up before him, and he continues walking, his steps steady and sure. The quiet of the night surrounds him, but it is no longer a silence filled with uncertainty. It is a silence that is comforting, one that echoes the steady beat of his heart. For the first time, the Duke feels at peace with his journey, at peace with the unknowns that lie ahead. He doesn't know what the future holds. He doesn't know where the road will take him or who he will meet along the way. But for the first time, he is not afraid. The weight of his past has been lifted, and in its place, there is a quiet strength, a strength that comes from within. The Duke is no longer running from who he was. He is walking toward who he is meant to be, and with that, the Duke steps forward, the path ahead stretching out before him, endless and full of possibility. The journey is far from over, but for the first time in his life, he is ready to face whatever comes next. The Duke walks on, his feet carrying him deeper into the wilderness. As the days stretch on, the sense of unease that once haunted him fades away, replaced by a quiet, growing confidence. Each step he takes feels more purposeful, as though the world around him is beginning to reveal itself, not as a maze to navigate, but as a landscape to explore and understand. The forest, the open plains, the mountains in the distance, they no longer seem so vast and intimidating. Instead, they are a reflection of the journey within him. One morning, as he rises before the sun, the Duke finds himself on the edge of a small village, nestled in a valley surrounded by rolling hills. The earth is still damp from the morning dew, and the sky is just beginning to lighten, casting a soft glow over the rooftops. The village is quiet, save for the soft clatter of the blacksmith's hammer in the distance and the faint chirp of birds greeting the day. The air smells fresh, filled with the scent of wet earth and flowers blooming nearby. He has spent many nights alone, under the vast, starlit sky, with only his thoughts for company. But today feels different. He feels drawn to the village, not out of curiosity, but because something within him is beginning to awaken. It's as though he's realizing that he's not just a traveler on the road. He is part of the world around him. He feels connected to the people here, even though they are strangers. They live their lives without grandeur, without titles, but there is a depth to their simplicity that calls to him. In their lives, he sees a reflection of his own journey, a journey toward simplicity, toward finding purpose in the quiet moments that make up life. The Duke decides to stop in the village, not as a passing stranger, but as a guest, a traveler, with a purpose. He enters the village square, where a small market is beginning to open. There are farmers selling their produce, craftsmen displaying their wares, and women gathered to trade goods. It's a far cry from the palace markets he once knew. There is no opulence here, no fine silks or rare spices. But the people's faces are open, honest, and welcoming. He approaches a stall where an elderly man is selling fresh bread, his hands weathered by years of hard work. The Duke, feeling a sudden surge of gratitude for the simple, honest exchange, buys a loaf of bread. The elderly man looks at him with a knowing smile, as if he sees something in the Duke's eyes that others have not. "You're far from home." "Young man," the elderly man says, his voice low and gravelly, yet kind. But that's often where the best journeys begin. The Duke smiles, his heart warmed by the man's words. "Yes," he replies, his voice soft but steady. "I suppose I am." The elderly man nods, as if understanding. He takes a moment, then adds, "Sometimes we have to leave behind what we know to find out what we've been looking for. Sometimes we go looking for answers, and all we find is ourselves." The Duke is silent for a moment, the man's words settling deep within him. There is a wisdom in the simplicity of these words, a wisdom he had not expected to find in this quiet village. It resonates with the journey he has been on, the challenges he has faced, and the person he is becoming. In that fleeting exchange, he realizes that his search for meaning has always been about self-discovery. The Duke was not just running from his past, but walking toward his true self Dot as the Duke leaves the stall. The bread in his hands feels like a symbol, a reminder that the smallest moments often hold the most significance. The simplicity of this exchange, the kindness of a stranger, is the kind of richness he has been seeking all along. The day stretches on, and as the Duke spends time in the village, he begins to notice how interconnected everything is. The farmers and craftsmen work together, helping one another in ways that make the village a thriving community. It's a stark contrast to the palace life he once knew, where everything was structured by duty and title, where relationships were transactional, defined by power and status. Here, in this village, there is no need for hierarchy. The people are bound together by a shared understanding, a mutual respect for each other's work and presence. Dot as evening falls and the village gathers. Around the small bonfire in the center, the Duke sits with the villagers, listening to their stories. They speak of their lives, of their families, of the land they till, and of the challenges they face. There is no grandiosity in their words, no claim to power or authority. And yet, there is a wisdom in the simplicity of their lives. They know the value of hard work, of perseverance, and of community. Dot the Duke realizes that he has much to learn from these people. It isn't just about leaving the palace behind. It's about understanding what truly makes a life worth living. He has spent so long searching for meaning in titles, in wealth, in power, but it is here, among these humble people, that he begins to understand the deeper truths of life. Dot, as the fire crackles and the night deepens, the Duke feels a sense of peace settle over him. The world, once so vast and overwhelming, now feels more like a place he can belong to. It is no longer about the title he carries or the life he was born into. It is about the choices he makes, the relationships he builds, and the quiet strength that comes from living with authenticity and purpose. He knows now that his journey is far from over. The road ahead is still uncertain, but for the first time in his life, he feels ready to walk it, not as a duke, but as a man. A man who has learned that the simplest things in life often hold the most profound truths. The days in the village pass slowly, each one filling the Duke with more clarity, more understanding of himself and the world around him. As he learns from the villagers, he begins to see the beauty and simplicity and the rhythm of daily life, the unspoken connections between people, the quiet respect they have for each other and their surroundings. In these simple acts, the Duke finds a peace that had eluded him in the gilded halls of the palace. He is no longer searching for grandeur or power. He is searching for meaning, for authenticity. One morning, after a particularly restful night, under the stars, the Duke finds himself standing at the edge of the village, watching the sun rise over the rolling hills. The air is cool, and the land before him is bathed in soft golden light. He feels as if he is standing at the edge of something, vast something he can't quite name, but understands deeply in his soul. The journey, though long and at times uncertain, has led him here, to this moment, and to this realization. The villagers, he has learned, do not look for greatness or recognition. They live for the present moment, for the work they do, for the family and community they cherish. They live for each other, for the quiet joy of a life well lived. The Duke has begun to see that perhaps this is the true meaning of life, not in titles, not in wealth, but in the connections we make, the lives we touch, and the quiet moments of fulfillment that arise from being true to who we are. And yet, despite the clarity he has found here, the Duke knows that the road ahead still holds its challenges. He is still uncertain of where this journey will lead him, but for the first time, he no longer feels the need to control every step. He is learning to embrace the uncertainty, to let go of the need for perfection, and to trust that each step he takes will bring him closer to the man he is meant to be. Asterisk. The night before his departure, the villagers gather around the fire once more, their faces glowing in the flickering light. The Duke sits with them, no longer a stranger, but one of their own. He is no longer just the Duke who had once walked away from his kingdom in search of freedom. He is a man who has learned that freedom comes not in escaping his past, but in accepting it, in learning to live with it, and in finding his own path forward. The fire crackles softly, and as the villagers sing a quiet song, the Duke feels a deep sense of gratitude settle in his heart. He has come so far both in the world and within himself. He is no longer the young man who left the palace in search of something more. He is someone new, someone who has found peace in the simplicity of life, in the relationships he has built, and in the quiet moments of reflection that has shaped his journey. As the night deepens, the Duke stands, his heart full. He has found what he was looking for, not in the world outside, but in the world within. He knows that his journey is far from over, but he also knows that no matter where the road leads, he is ready. He is not the man he once was, and that is the greatest gift of all. With the quiet stars above and the gentle hum of the village around him, the Duke takes one final look at the life he has lived. He is not bound by title, nor by the expectations of others. He is a man who has learned to live with purpose, with love, and with a deep sense of belonging to the world around him. As he walks away from the village, the path ahead remains uncertain, but he no longer fears the unknown. He is ready to embrace it, knowing that the journey will always be his to define. The road stretches out before him, endless and full of possibility, and with each step he takes, he walks closer to the life he has always been meant to live.